Denver Public Schools says bringing back armed police worked. Fewer kids are bringing guns to school. RTD is going to have a slow train summer, tearing up tracks downtown, keeping trains at a crawl through the tech center with no end in sight. Trying to get a straight answer from a Republican congressional candidate on banning IVF.
I'm not sure if I heard an answer to whether the state government has a role in telling people what to do with embryos.
And a famous sign that Huron, Colfax, and Aurora is about to get a new, old look. That's tonight on Next.
It's been a year since Denver schools brought back armed school resource officers after a series of shootings. Our Kelly Rinke has learned that since then, DPS has found fewer weapons in schools than in previous years.
Two deans at East High shot during a weapons search. A student killed down the street weeks earlier. Last year, parents were angry.
This is traumatic.
Classmates demanded to feel safe in school.
It is something that we have to address as a community.
Denver Public Schools changed its policy for weapons searches. Staff don't do it anymore. Now only trained campus safety officers check students. The district also brought back armed school resource officers for its high schools.
Or not just, standing guard at the front door. They're building relationships.
Gregory Cazell is the chief of safety for DPS. He believes armed SROs is one of the reasons this past year the district found fewer weapons in schools.
Working with those students to solve things before they get elevated.
Data from the district shows in the 2021-2022 school year, DPS confiscated 202 weapons, from guns to tasers to knives. In 2022 to 2023, it dropped to 186. And this past school year, even fewer, 166 weapons.
It was a difficult time coming out of the pandemic. That's where you're seeing a lot of those numbers.
Cazell also credits the help of nonprofits and the commitment from employees.
Our school staff is also doing incredible work, identifying students in crisis.
The numbers are going down. After a difficult year, changed the conversation about safety.
The marches to the Capitol and students demand action, that is having an impact. That is having a positive impact of what their peers see and what their peers realize is not appropriate behavior.
So there could be a measure on the ballot this November that would help pay for projects at DPS, including adding metal detectors. The school board is reviewing that proposal, and they will vote on it in August.
Kelly, talk about what people were demanding. Parents were demanding a change to the discipline matrix, the rules that in DPS allows some kid to be involved in like an attempted murder case outside school and then go right back to the classroom.
Yeah, superintendent had an update on that today, and it still does not address that situation. If a student does something violent that's off school grounds and it doesn't relate to the school whatsoever, discipline matrix will not kick in.
Kelly Rinke, thank you. The former Aurora police chief who handled the response to the Aurora Theater shooting is now joining dozens of other law enforcement leaders from across the U.S. to advocate for federal gun control. The group, called Police Leaders for Community Safety, launched this week to push for gun control like universal background checks. They also want more aggressive prosecution of gun crimes. This new organization is made up of more than 50 current and former law enforcement leaders from across the U.S. Former Aurora Police Chief Dan Oates is on board. He says a limit on high-capacity magazines could have drastically changed what happened during the Aurora Theater shooting back in 2012.
The magazine jammed after 65 rounds, and he was unable to complete a magazine transfer. Imagine if that magazine had held only 15 rounds, how many lives would have been saved? No one needs an assault rifle with a 100-round magazine or even a 30-round magazine. It would be a sensible move in the right direction in this country if we limited those magazines to, say, 15 rounds.
There's some other familiar names involved with this. Former Aurora Police Chief Art Acevedo and former Colorado Springs Chief Rick Myers also have leadership roles. A prominent election denier and Republican activist in Colorado is facing possible legal sanctions for contempt of court because he walked out of a federal deposition last week. Podcaster Joe Oltmann is the guy who claimed that he overheard an Antifa conference call that revealed a conspiracy to rig the 2020 election with Denver-based Dominion voting systems. Oltmann could now be held in contempt of court for refusing to give up the source of that call. Oltmann has claimed for years without proof that he listened in on this call where he says former Dominion Voting Systems exec Eric Coomer said that he, quote, made sure Donald Trump would not win the 2020 election. That claim was picked up by the Trump campaign, a number of right-wing media outlets, and it is now central to multiple defamation suits against Altman brought by Dominion and Coomer independently. Altman walked out of a deposition for one of those cases last week after refusing to reveal the source who allegedly let him in on this supposed call. Attorneys say they need to know that information to prove whether the call was real. Altman now faces possible sanctions for violating a subpoena. A magistrate judge has recommended that he should pay a fine and pay attorney's fees. The federal judge overseeing the case would have to approve that. The U.S. Supreme Court has unanimously upheld access to a medication that's used in 2/3 of abortions. It's the first abortion-related ruling since the court overturned Roe v. Wade. Anti-abortion groups were seeking to drastically limit this drug's circulation, even in states like Colorado, where abortion is legal. The court's ruling protects the FDA authorization of the abortion drug mifepristone and expanded access to the drug through telehealth appointments and mail orders. The ruling leaves open the possibility that states could challenge the FDA's authorization. Our next conversation tonight is with Republican congressional candidate Deborah Flora. She's one of 6 Republicans, including Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, running in the primary for Colorado's safest GOP seat in Congress, the 4th. That's Dougco, Loveland, Eastern Plains. On the issue of abortion, Flora has dodged questions on whether she would support a national abortion ban. She told me today it's not something she'd be fighting for. It also was not easy to figure out if Flora supports allowing states to ban IVF. Should states be able to ban in vitro fertilization?
Well, I do believe it is a states' right issue, but I have to say, Kyle, this hits me very personally. My husband and I were told that we wouldn't ever be able to have our own children. And that is something I know many families who go through that and the heartache that that is and how much science has helped with that.
I want to make sure that I fully understand your answer. So your belief is that states should have the ability to ban IVF, but you don't think that they should? You
know, I think it's something where that is... Let me put it this way. There are safeguards around concerns, let's say, that people have in the life side of things. Let's say there are 20, embryos or whatever that's right. There are certain ways to go about that. My husband and I made ethical decisions personally when we pursued this pathway. And I do think it is more of a personal thing. I certainly do not think that the Senate should be blocking this or in any way weighing in on this. This is a very personal situation.
And to that end, do you think that there's a role for state governments in weighing in on what couples do with their embryos?
I think that that's something where there are wonderful options for those who this is a concern for, which it was for my husband and I. We want to look at this from an ethical standpoint. I think it's a very personal decision, and it's one I'm very grateful that we had the opportunity to pursue ourselves.
I'm not sure if I heard an answer to whether the state government has a role in telling people what to do with embryos.
I don't believe so.
When our conversation continues, I'll ask Flora about something that she said during her talk radio career. The parents should pull their kids out of public school. RTD is a very public agency funded with your tax dollars from around the Denver metro area, your federal tax money, and fares paid by riders. RTD is currently having a very public problem. Limited light rail departures and now a mass slowdown of trains on the south side of town until rail damage is repaired. Given the public agency's public problem, our Marshall Zellinger asked when the public can have a timeline for a fix.
It is a sound light rail riders hear on the platform once every half hour, and perhaps a little bit longer in between, since light rail that runs along I-25 from Colorado Boulevard to County Line have to slow to 10 miles an hour in different spots.
How long have you been waiting for that thing?
It's going on like 15 minutes now. And then now it'll probably be like another 10 minutes before it gets here.
Chip is just trying to go one stop and probably could have walked.
Oh, a hell of a lot faster.
But it's hot.
Hot as hell.
The light rail did not take another 10 minutes once it got in sight, and Chip did get on for his one-stop ride.
Given all the press on the slowdowns in RTD, I've asked the team to brief us on Monday.
At this week's Public Utilities Commission hearing, Chairman Eric Blank prepped the commission for an update next week and then got one immediately from the PUC Deputy Director of Rail Safety.
I could give you some briefing now if it would be helpful.
Pam Fishhaber explained what we showed you earlier this week. RTD inspections along the Southeast Light Rail line revealed rail damage that needs to be repaired, like the burning on this railhead where the wheels make contact with the rail. This needs to be replaced and is one of the areas for the 10-mile-per-hour slowdowns. Last June, RTD recorded 282,000 boardings for the month on the E-line that runs from Ridgegate in Douglas County to 10th and Osage downtown. The most recent ridership numbers are from March, when there were 306,000 boardings.
So do you expect these slowdowns to continue for an extended period of time?
It may take a little bit of time to get all the rail order that they need. We should expect this to be the condition for a while, but no end date in sight at this point.
RTD probably did not want her to say no end date in sight. Where these slowdowns are happening are in the same spot where a train stayed disabled on the track for 4 days in January. We reported on that train several times, stuck between Yale and Southmore. We were never told why it was stuck. This week, the PUC found out that the train started to shed wheel and tire components until it experienced catastrophic wheel and tire failure. No one was hurt. And as of right now, Kyle, there's no documentation saying that that's related to the damage that was recently discovered on the track.
All those words sound very bad, even if you know nothing about trains. At the end of the day, RTD knows that it has a public confidence problem. This doesn't help. We were just talking about it. I'm going to the Zach Bryan show this weekend, the country show at Mile High. And whenever we go to Mile High, we always take light rail. But now you're just kind of like, well, am I far enough north to avoid the one problem, and am I far enough west to avoid the other problem? And at some point, you're just like, nah, screw it, Uber, you know?
They have announced there are going to be extended times for the concert, so like, but it's on the hour. So if you're going south, like if you're going on the E-line, 11:05 p.m., 12:05 a.m., 1:05 a.m., and if you're going the full distance, you have to take into account the 10-mile-per-hour areas. So it's gonna be a late night at the concert.
Yeah, it's hard to jog in boots, but maybe we'll just jog home. All right, Marshall, thank you. If parents heeded your call and pulled all kids out of Colorado's public elementary and middle schools, what practically would happen? A congressional candidate outlines her vision for education. And what's old is new again, peeling back decades of paint and decay to restore a landmark. Deborah Flora gave up her talk radio show to run for Congress. She says that Republican Representative Lauren Boebert could put the safely red 4th Congressional District at risk with her antics. I asked Flora about a striking thing that she said on her radio show. The Colorado Republican Party recently called for parents to pull their kids out of all public schools, and that expands on a call that you made a couple years ago for parents to pull their children out of all public elementary and middle schools. Assuming that you're serious and that you didn't say it for shock value, what would actually happen if parents heeded your call and pulled all kids out of Colorado's public elementary and middle schools? What practically would happen?
Well, let me address the first part. So I stand by the principle behind this statement because I have been a passionate advocate for school choice and for parental rights. Sometimes when you're passionate, maybe you don't give the nuance to this statement. I look forward to adding that nuance right now. The principle behind it is this. I stand unequivocally for school choice, parental rights. What that means is that everyone should have another option. They should not only have one option, which is the public school system. And ultimately, that would look like the money following the student, not the system, and allowing that those options to prevail for everyone.
But there's a pretty big gulf between I stand for school choice and you saying that public schools are a burning building, get our kids out.
I was talking about someone that had used that analogy because I just spoken to a mom who was so disturbed by the lack of transparency, by her child coming home and being distressed by what they were taught, and she didn't even know what that was going to be. So I said, if that's your situation, then that is not the right fit for you. Get your child out and find the right fit.
My full conversation with Deborah Flora is on the YouTube page, our next YouTube page. We also discuss her concerns with Donald Trump's mass deportation plan, her call for the head of the Colorado GOP to resign, and her brief flirtation with election misinformation. We invited all of the 4th Congressional District GOP primary candidates to join us, and 4 of them did. You can see those interviews on YouTube. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert and Jerry Sonnenberg would not come in. Turn out to Kathy Saban after another hot day around town.
That's right. Hot, dry, Kyle, and 97 degrees again in Denver for the second day in a row. We're tracking isolated severe storms out on the eastern plains as a cool front begins to move in. 106 in Lamar, 103 in Pueblo, 97 at DIA, and 101 in Grand Junction. Winds are very gusty out of the northeast as that front moves in, and it will bring in some low-level moisture for showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Air quality a prime concern with another ozone action day today and through 4 o'clock on Friday. The isolated severe storms include this cell outside of Flagler, moving northeast at 20 miles per hour, has the potential to drop some quarter and nickel-sized hail along with some damaging winds and heavy rain. Elsewhere, relatively quiet for now. We expect that to be the rule throughout the evening, even though we're in a level 1 risk area for severe storms across northeastern Colorado tonight. And we look for those clouds to increase with the front moving through. We get a partly sunny and cooler day tomorrow. Foothill storms start about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and then really ramp up between 2 and 5, moving out onto the eastern plains during the evening hours. And then a second wave comes through overnight tomorrow night into Saturday. We do have a cooler Friday with scattered strong storms likely from 3:30 to 6:30. Dry and warm Saturday, sunshine and 95 for Father's Day. A cooling trend with storms, back in the forecast Wednesday of next week.
Ever wish you could get an up-close look at the famous Aurora Fox Theater sign? Well, be careful what you wish for.
We actually, when we opened up the sign, found about 4 feet of dead pigeons.
The historic neon sign is being restored with fewer dead pigeons. Next. The Aurora Fox Theater's 60-foot-tall sign is proof that even neon can be dull. That thing's been in shoddy shape for years. Get ready for a little new light on that stretch of East Colfax.
I just love looking at this building, and you can see it from miles away coming down Colfax.
Hello.
What you doing? Clear coating? If we're preserving this 1946 building, we need to preserve the neon that went with it.
Okay, are we ready? Let's go. We're at the Fox Theater right now, trying to get this piece of art painted.
I have been taking pictures almost daily. I am Chris Geddes. I am the Historic Preservation Specialist for the City of Aurora. People are going to be very surprised when they see the sign finished because it's not going to look like anything they've seen. And then you see the Fox Theater sign as everybody knows it. What we have kind of called the 1980s Miami Vice theme.
Scary at first being up so high, but you get used to it.
Okay. The intent of this project is to take it back as close to original as possible. This is a circa 1955 photo. This is where we could see the red. But I think when people see it with the red, the yellow, the white, the green, being able to take it back to that original time period and share that.
Okay, we're good.
It's going to be exciting when we reveal it and have the neon back on there. I can't wait to see it all finished.
And all the dead pigeons gone. It'll be relit June 22nd. Comment of the day came in via email from Mark during that story. He wrote, it would appear the fox was guarding the pigeon house. Want to clear up something I said earlier? Your feedback will help me do that next. Eric writes, you misled on the Supreme Court decision on mifepristone. They did not uphold the right to access. They ruled the plaintiffs didn't have standing. The result, he says, is the status quo. Eric, you are absolutely right. I was trying to describe like the practical impact of the justice's decision, and in doing so, my words were unclear. Your words were way more clear. So thank you for allowing us that opportunity to clear it up. See you next time.